Welcome back to the Founders on Flights podcast. Today I'm talking with an incredible person, one of those people who started out as a client, a business peer, and when the contract ended, the friendship continued, and it's someone that I'm really grateful to know. She's an inspiration. And we're unpacking the truth behind what it really takes to be running a business and living nomadically at the same time. Because honestly, a lot of this stuff is not talked about online. So we are pulling back the curtain and really getting into it. Welcome to the Founders on Flights podcasts. I'm so excited to welcome our guest today, a former client and a really good friend, Christian speaker and podcaster, Sophia DiMuccio. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Amanda, and hello to everyone listening. I'm so excited to be here as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to jump into all of this. Do you want to take a minute and just kind of let us know a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and what life is like in your world?
Yeah, well, guys, you've caught me at a really interesting place because I'm actually in the midst of a career transition, but I'll give you a little history on what my business was, what I'm moving into now, and a little bit about my journey being a founder on flights. So I started my coaching business 3.5 years ago. And I had really always had a passion for content and social media. I actually started my first Instagram page and YouTube channel as a passion project while I was in university. And I always knew that I wanted to have an unconventional life. I wanted to have the kind of life where I could hop on a plane and go somewhere just on a whim. I could go live in another country, experience the culture and the lifestyle to the fullest without any restrictions. And something my dad always taught me that always stuck with me is don't ask yourself, what do I want to be when I grow up? Ask yourself, how do you want to live? And then reverse engineer a career from there. So that was my question coming out of university. I was like, how do I want to live? And I knew that I wanted that flexibility. And so immediately, instead of looking for jobs, I started looking at what's a career path that I could go into that could allow me to work from anywhere. And I have a natural, entrepreneurial spirit. So I was great with content and social media, and that led me into coaching. At first, it was more about mindset. And then my coaching got into business, personal branding, and sales because people started seeing how great I was just at marketing myself, and they were asking me for advice on that. So that was kind of like where my transition came in. And that's when me and Amanda started working together. About a year into me doing business coaching, I hired her to be my online business manager. And we worked together for what, how long? Like 2 years?
Yeah, around there probably.
And during that time, she supported me as I literally took my business to 3 different continents. I traveled all over the world. I lived between Canada and Guatemala, traveling and going on different trips, different adventures. I went to Europe and spent a summer in Europe. And there was so much movement that happened. And I remember probably the most significant milestone of my career as a business coach was hitting $100,000 in my business in a 9-month period while traveling to 9 different countries. So that was just epic. And that for me felt like, wow, I did the thing, this is exactly what I dreamed of, and I made it happen. In the last year or so, I've been growing a lot more in my faith. And as a result of that, I decided I wanted to pivot in my career. So a few months ago, about 6 months ago, I stopped doing my coaching business and have now been transitioning into the podcasting and speaking space, which has been very new, very different. It's definitely it takes more time, I think, to start seeing monetizable results from that. However, all of my skills learning how to do content and social media have come in so handy while building this podcast. Within the first month of starting the podcast, we reached over 700,000 people with our content, and our pages have been growing, and we're really, really happy with what we're seeing so far. So I'm saying we because I started it with my sister and my cousin. But that's kind of been my journey over the last 3.5 years. It's been crazy. It's been amazing. It's been difficult at times. Oh my gosh, the roller coaster is real, but I'm really proud of everything that I've done. So Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of the intro. That's me.
Love that. No, it's been so, and we've had this similar kind of conversation so many times, but I love just being able to have been a part of all of that. Like, what a story, and like, I don't know, what a piece of life to have lived to go through all of that. And I think it's so important, obviously, the transition and everything that you learn from business and from travel and from all of these things like made you who you are right now and put
Absolutely.
you on the path that you're on. And that's just like wild when you look back at it all, and just so cool to be in the middle of it when it's happening as well. I also love what you said about the what your dad told you about how do you want to live, and then create your life around that, because that's something that I don't know if I heard that somewhere or if I've just like started thinking more that way recently. I've realized that when we're in school and when we're like becoming adults, that is not at all the concept that's being told to you. It's very much so figure out your job, figure out your career, and then the life that you will have comes with that.
Right.
And I think especially it's probably a very common belief around in the entrepreneur world, in the travel world, that it's the opposite. How do I want to live? And then we figure out a way to make that happen. And so I think that that's something that a lot of travelers and business owners can relate to in general. How would you say that transition for you was when you started to travel, when you started to kind of integrate those two worlds of like, okay, I know that this is the life I want to have. XYZ is how I do it. What was that integration transition process like for you?
Right. So I think the very first big move that I made, I was like a year into my business at that point. And I'd spent a year at home. I'm from Canada, so I was at home in Canada building up this business, really trying out a whole bunch of different things. I mean, the first year of business is rocky. You don't even know what you're doing. You don't know what's gonna stick. So I went through a lot of different phases. I had some big wins, but then I also had some big losses. So my business was nowhere near where I would consider stable. But I had really made this commitment to myself, like after a year, I am making the move because I had this vision of myself living in Guatemala. I had fallen in love with it while I was a backpacker. Like I did a backpacking trip right before I started my business. And I just fell in love with Guatemala and I was like, I have to live here. And so I committed myself to that. I was like, after 1 year, I am going. Like, come hell or high water, this is the commitment I'm making. So even though my business was very baby, really like still figuring out what I was even doing, no real stability, I made the move and I just went. I remember like I only really had enough to cover my living expenses for like a month or two. I really was like in a rocky place at that time. But there was something about changing my environment and like stepping into my vision board before I was even ready to be there that shifted
Mm.
things in my business. I remember drawing a lot of inspiration from the experiences I was having, the day to day, just loving my life so much more. I felt like I had more energy to give to my business. I felt like even just the act of like being bold, being brave, acting out of faith, it had transformed my confidence. It made me, and it honestly inspired other people too. Because I was very open and upfront about the fact that, like, hey, I'm doing this pretty prematurely. Like, most people probably wouldn't recommend this right now. And for some reason, that really inspired people. And there was like this flame that caught. People started paying attention to me and people started wanting to work with me.
Mm.
And I kept trying new things with my business and eventually ideas start to compound and the feedback that you get every time you just go out and try something new, it starts to compound. And so little by little, like I started figuring out what people actually wanted to hire me for, what I could sell effectively. And I think I had my first, yeah, like $30,000 sales month. I think it was 6 months into living abroad.
Wow.
Yeah, and before that, I was just kind of like getting by, like making little sales here and there. But things just, I was committed and I kept going, and the energy I was in combined with like just trying new things, the way I was inspiring people, the way I was leading myself, it led to some big results. And that was, I think, when I had my first like real breakthrough, and yeah, I kept going from there. And then that led us into the 9-month period where from there on, like I just kept going, and we did $100,000 in 9 months. And that was so awesome. And throughout that time, like I had moved from Guatemala. I started traveling through Europe for the summer. I went back to Canada to visit my family for a bit. I remember going to Mexico at the end of the year. So it was just like, yeah, it was one of those. Oh, I actually went to a few different places. I'm even forgetting. Like I went to Barbados to celebrate my dad's birthday. I went to Jamaica to celebrate my mom's birthday. We were all over the place.
Yeah.
The whole time I was just like continuing to work on my offers, launch them, and pour into my community. And I had a lot of really beautiful community spaces at that time too. So it was interesting how, like you sometimes think that taking that leap of faith is an irresponsible thing to do. And from a logical perspective, it absolutely is. But there's something that it transforms in you, which then transforms the results.
Mm.
So that's why I'm always an advocate for taking a leap of faith, taking a risk, because you really don't know what lives on the other side. Oftentimes it's not the worst case scenario, it's actually the best case scenario.
I love that. Wow. Yeah, that was you just kind of like summed up exactly why I want to be doing this podcast, because there's so many people that I met along the way who have that same exact story where it's like, yeah, it did not make sense. I did not have the money. I did not know how I was going to get there, what I was going to do when I got there. Like, I don't know. But then you just do it, blind faith, just like, I don't know. I'm just going to figure it out because I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And that knowing is like so strong that it carries you throughout the entire experience and everything just falls into place. And I think that a lot of people are scared to do that. And so they end up settling with, like we were saying before, that career that they chose that gave them the life that they didn't choose.
Right.
And I think that's just so powerful. And that is where that comes from, of like, it inspires other people, because I've heard that all the time. You're living my dream life. I don't know how I could never. And it's like, I try to tell them all the, like, I'm not special. Like, I don't have anything you don't have besides the will or the audacity. Like, I'm just doing the thing. I don't know what I'm doing just as much as you don't know what you're doing, but like, I'm still going to do it. And that's the only difference between us. And I just think that that's like so important, because it makes our lifestyle feel so glamorous. And it is. I remember at times you were sending me pictures being like, oh, we're launching next week. I'm on this lawn chair on the beach watching the ocean, like what? And I'm like, yeah, this is our life. Like, that's cool. But it's not like some far away, like, I have no idea how this, like, we are not that different. So I think that that's really cool to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, and even just to add to that, like, you just don't know what opportunities will open up when you actually get to the place you're going.
Yeah.
For example, my sister, she does UGC, user-generated content for different brands. And a lot of her connections are here in Canada and the States. But she had this calling to go over to Bali and Australia. I remember for months, she was just like so scared. She's like, how am I going to make money once I get over there? She was like kind of trying to like frantically work with as many brands as possible here so she could save up a bunch. But still, like, things were going to be unpredictable by the time she got there. She didn't have enough that she felt like completely safe and secure. But the moment she touched down over there, literally doors started opening up for her. So many people wanted what she had to offer because she had a high demand skill. She had a high value skill. And I think that's actually what's most important when you're making the leap into traveling while you're working or while you're building a business. You have to remember that the value you carry is in the skills that you have. And if you have a high value skill, you can pretty much make anywhere work. So she went there. There was such a demand for the skills that she had, both in Bali and in Australia, that She ended up making more money in like the 4 months that she was there than she made in like the 6 months that she was at home. Crazy. And I actually remember too, like when I had just moved to Guatemala, actually the one client who kept me afloat was a client who found me because she was also going to be moving to the same town that I was in Guatemala. She DM'd me. We met at a coffee shop and she ended up signing like a 3-month package with me. And that helped me like just get by in the first little bit that I was there. But
Yeah.
that was all location dependent. And we actually met in person for like the 3 months that we worked together. So there are things that are in the location you want to go to that you may not be aware of yet. And if you remember that your skills have value and you can market and monetize your skills wherever you are, then I think you can have a little bit more confidence to make that leap and, go to the place that your heart is telling you to go.
Yeah, that's so true. What would you say is something that that travel, being fully remote and location independent, how did that part of your life make business harder, if it did? In what ways did they kind of clash?
Yeah. Okay, let me think about this for a sec because I won't lie. Like I'm the kind of person where a little bit of instability makes me better. Not everyone's like that. A lot of people, like, if their daily routine, if their daily environment is thrown off in any sort of way, they just start freaking out internally
Yeah.
and keep things afloat. I've seen that, and that's fair. For me, when the moment I like step off a plane and I'm in like a new place and I can go to like a new coffee shop, I'm like, okay, what are we doing today? Like, I'm
Mhm.
I'm just like that lights me up and makes me come alive. So yeah, so it's interesting, but let me just say this is one thing that I don't think enough people talk about that really bit me in the butt was that because I was moving around so much and everywhere I was going was so different, I was not able to track my living expenses very well.
Hmm.
My living expenses were very like up and down depending on the month, depending on the city I was in,
Hmm.
depending on where I was living, what kind of like grocery stores I had access to or activities I wanted to do in that place. And because of that, like, especially when you're a solo entrepreneur, you're responsible for managing your entire financial picture. And you're balancing between business expenses and then personal expenses and then income. And then, maybe you're making investments in the business as well. So it gets really sticky and really hard to track.
Hmm.
I will say like that was an area that I was really sucked at and I really wish that I was better at and I really wish somebody told me about just how important it is to actually like have some sort of regular budget and try and stay within that even as you are moving to different parts of the world.
Right.
Yeah, that was definitely a piece that was very difficult for me. Because I think for me, the moving around wasn't the hard part. It was more like, how do I manage the money that's coming in and the money that's going out? And not to mention, even as an entrepreneur, like your income is going to differ from month to month to month. So then everything just becomes unpredictable. Expenses are unpredictable, income's unpredictable, and there's no way to track it. And I found like actually stacking wealth became basically impossible for me.
Hmm.
One of the things that I'm working on a lot right now because I know if I am going to build anything in the future, I have to be able to manage that, or else it doesn't matter how much money you make, it can all go through your fingertips. So, yeah, that's a really difficult part about being on the move.
Yeah, I fully agree with that too. I feel like it's true. It's not something that people talk about a lot, and it's not something you think is happening when you see someone running their own business and getting these sales or whatever it is. But then it's like, yeah, that is this month, that is for this offer. But also, there's so many other things that come into play with that. Like you were saying, it's unpredictable. And then moving around it's a whole other thing. I always say, like, yeah, I was spending less, if not the same traveling as I was when I'm like settled in one place if I'm intentional about it. But it's a lot of it goes into play with like the flights, with transportation, with groceries, with rent, whatever that looks like for that time, and excursions. And that was something that I definitely run into. For me, I would say, which kind of goes hand in hand with finances too, is balancing the two experiences. I always felt like I wasn't giving enough of myself to exploring this new place and culture and
Yeah.
whatever it was, versus giving enough of myself to my business and being fully there, which is always a
Right. And then sometimes you're kind of like, oh no, I'm in a really sticky spot right now. Well, I guess I just have to sell more next month. So then next thing you know, you're like in hyperdrive, like sales mode, like frantically trying to sell something because you need it. And I was really good at working under pressure, I'm not gonna lie, but it's not something that I would recommend you do
yeah.
because it's a trap. It's just like a loop that keeps you stuck. And yeah, the problem with that then is you're in this beautiful new place that you really want to be able to enjoy, but you really have to, like, you can't even do that because you have to have your head down working because you manage your finances really poorly, maybe for like weeks or months before that. So that was something that actually I found myself in that cycle. And it was one of the reasons that I wanted to like take a step back from my coaching business because I really
Mm.
knew that like unless I developed the skill of being able to steward money well, this lifestyle was actually not going to be sustainable for me. And yeah, like you mentioned, like people don't talk about that online. You see somebody, you know, in this beautiful villa in Brazil, and you know they share that they just had this like huge sales month, but you have no idea what their business expenses are, you have no idea what the lifestyle expenses are, you have no idea what debt they have, what debt they're trying to pay off, like you
Right.
just don't know what the full financial picture is. And I don't expect everyone to just like put that on blast and like be public online about it, but I do think that anyone who wants to have that lifestyle needs to consider it because a lot of the people who are living that way, I think, are a lot less free than they think they are. I'm not
Mm.
even saying a lot less free than they portray themselves to be, like, yeah, for sure, but actually less free than they think they are. Because I thought I was fully free. I thought I was building like wealth in the process of this.
Mhm.
I was maintaining what I had, but I wasn't actually building for the future. And yeah, that's definitely something I would tell my younger self if I could go back in time. But you know what? It's never too late to build those skills. That's the good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of on that note, what would you say are different versions of you that have emerged over the past few years in that like world of running a business and also learning how to manage all of that while traveling? Like what kinds of different versions of you have come up from that?
Oh man, so
I'm
many.
sure a lot. Yeah.
I feel like I really graduated from like amateur baby entrepreneur to more seasoned entrepreneur. I mean, I'm still very early on in my entrepreneurial career, but I don't have the same mindset that I did at the beginning. I think at the beginning, what I experienced in myself and what I see with a lot of people too is you have this very short time frame in terms of like how long you think it's going to take until you're successful.
Mm.
Right? So you're like, okay, well, if in the like by the first 6 months, like I should be seeing some substantial results or I'm doing something wrong. And the truth is, it actually is going to take a lot longer than you think. It's going to
Yeah.
take a lot longer. And you're going to get rejected a lot more than you think. And things are not going to work. And you're going to feel cringe and you're going to be embarrassed at the version of yourself from a week ago. Um, and all of that is part of the journey. So
Mm.
at the beginning, I used to look at those things and be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? And kind of start to spiral. Whereas now, whenever I think about starting something, I'm like, okay, so I need to commit to this like minimum year to 3 years, depending on what the thing is, before I know if it's actually valuable, and I should continue investing in it. So I just have a much like longer timeline. Like even when it comes to this podcast that I'm starting up, I'm like, sick, great. We're so happy with first month's results. We know it's going to take a ton of work before this gets to the point where it's monetizable. Could be a year, could be 3 years, could be 5 years, could be 10 years. So are you willing to commit that time? Because that's what it's going to take, but it will be worth it at the end. There will be a huge payoff. But you have to know, like, you're going to post things that feel cringe. You're probably going to say things that get you in some trouble. And that's like part of the ride, to be honest. Like, even when it comes to content and social media, people are so afraid to just try something. Like,
Mhm.
they're overthinking their posts. I'm just like, post it. Literally, you're not going to know what happens until you just post it. And if
Yep.
you hate it, like, just delete it in a week. Like, but see, like, you have to experiment. You have to be willing to be embarrassing, to be cringe. And just that's the only way you get enough data to really know what works and what doesn't. So yeah, I feel like there was like baby entrepreneur who just wanted everything now and didn't understand the work involved versus now more seasoned CEO where I'm like, I have like a healthy amount of pessimism. Like, that's the way to say it. Like, I have a healthy amount
Yeah.
of just or maybe it's like realism. Like, I know actually what it's gonna take, and I get to decide like, am I willing to go through that process with this? Like, there is no such thing as easy money. There is no such thing as fast money. Like, you have to be in it for the long run or else there's truly no point. Um I also think, I had my like traveling CEO era, which was really fun. And I think I still like am a traveling CEO. Like, I'm always going to be. And I have also had my more like homebody, just like head down internal resting seasons, which I think are both important. Like, in between those big travel stretches, what does start to happen is I kind of started to get some fatigue from like moving around so much and always having to think about like, okay, like, where am I going next? Or like planning, like, where am I going to live and all this stuff. Eventually, you just want to be able to have something familiar. And so that's why I'm always grateful that I can come home to Canada and spend a few months here with my family, not having to worry about rent, not having to worry about groceries. I live with my dad when I'm here, and it's honestly good for my spirit. It's good for my spirit. Like, it recharges me. It allows me to just like kind of slow. I find I often like slow things down with the business whenever
Mhm.
I am at home, and I really get to ask myself like, does this feel aligned still? Like, am I still moving in a direction that I feel good about? Because you are going to evolve as you go. And if your business doesn't evolve with you or your brand doesn't evolve with you, that's when you start to kind of feel this like weird resistance and tension with what you're doing. So I think
Totally.
we have to have moments when we slow down, when we're not moving so fast, and when we're not like in a build phase, that we can actually like, whew, reflect, check in,
Mm.
and audit what we've been doing.
Yes, I second that 1,000 times. I think that I like what you said kind of about social media, and I think it applies to this lifestyle in general, is you get data from everything you're doing,
Mhm.
and and the only way to know what the data is to do the thing. But then to your point is you need to be able to audit that data to know what it's saying. And so having that place, whether it be physical or mental or whatever it is, where you can retreat back to and take a break from all of the things, because this lifestyle is as busy and crazy as it looks. That's one thing that is portrayed correctly, I think, is that there is a lot that goes into making it happen and planning it and figuring it all out and just managing it regularly. That we do need time to like shut it down and just retreat to your mind and be like, okay, where am I at? What's working? What's not working? How do I want to go forward from here? So,
Yeah.
how would you say that? Because I think that, and this is something that's been said before, that entrepreneurship is like a fast track to self-development. It teaches you so much about yourself. And I think that if you put that on a flight and you put that all around the world, that's going to fast track that 10 more times, because not
Yeah.
only are you forcing yourself to figure out all of these strategies and things happening in the business, and that's going to help you with self-development, but then put that on top of sharing a bed with 15 strangers and like being on a train 15 hours a day, like all of these other things where travel is so unpredictable and you
Yeah.
never know kind of how to like what's going to come up for you there, and then put all of that together. Like, I think that is the most self-development you can get. So with all of that being said, how would you say that travel has helped shape your identity and your values now, and who you are. I know you, like you mentioned before, you've gone through a lot of transitions. You are completely shifting things now. So how has that had played a role in that?
This is something I'm so passionate about. Like travel, I think everyone needs to travel to somewhere completely
Yeah,
foreign to them at least once in their life.
totally.
You don't have a full picture of humanity unless you do. And
Hmm.
the truth is that if you're on business, your job is to serve people. And to serve people, you have to understand people. And so you need to know like the full picture of like what it means to be human, to really understand people. And you can't get that if you've only ever seen people in the environment and in the culture that you grew up in.
Yes.
So travel for me, what it's done is it's allowed me to understand the full picture of like the range of human experience that we have on this earth. Like I'll give you an example because this is one of those things that's so hard to explain without an example. A few months ago, I was in Nicaragua and I went to go and spend a month in this small town in northern Nicaragua because my boyfriend, he plays baseball professionally in that country. And so I was visiting him, and this is a town where there is not like five-star hotels, like in the sense that we know them in
Hmm.
Canada and North America. This is a town where, people like on average, I don't know what the average salary is, but like I'll give you an example. In Guatemala, like most people, 90% of the country lives on $1 a day, right? So you have to understand that there are a lot of people who have just like a completely different experience of like money and of like what just like what a day-to-day life looks like, what comfort looks like, what's necessary versus what's not necessary, what really matters, what's important, what's beautiful, what's not. And so I was living in this town and like it was very cute, it was very quaint. It was it was not like the standards I'm used to. Maybe the room or the bed's not what I'm used to, I'm getting woken up at 6 a.m. by people coming through like telling me they're selling bananas outside. There's no AC in the room and it's super hot, but I have a fan, but the fan's a little loud. These are just uncomfortable things that are normal for them. And I'm really blessed that, I can go to a place like that and I can go and get like a really great piece of steak anytime I want, or I can go do a little bit of shopping anytime I want. But there were several times where I saw people pulling food out of a garbage because that is the only thing that they were going to be able to eat that day. And it really like humbles you and it makes you realize, wow, like my whole life, I've been comparing myself to people who have more than me
Mm.
when I should have been comparing myself to people who had less than me. Because you will find so much more gratitude in that, fulfillment in that, and such a deeper desire to give generously in that. And that should be the whole point of your business. Your whole business should be about how can I truly serve the world and give more generously. Your heart is never going to be positioned in that way if all you're ever doing is staying in your bubble and looking at the people who are a few steps ahead of you and have a bigger apartment than you and live a more luxurious lifestyle than you and have more luxurious things than you and are more aesthetic than you, you're always going to feel like you're lacking something and therefore you're never going to feel like you have enough to give.
Mm.
But the moment you go to an environment and a culture in a community that has less than you and you have that contrast, suddenly you start to feel like the wealthiest woman on earth and you start to feel like, who am I not to give? Who am I not to do everything in my power with the opportunities that I have to help other people? Like that would be so selfish of me. And so it's given me like I think a whole new reason for being an entrepreneur because not everyone can. Not everyone has the opportunities we do. I'm so lucky that I can try these different things, that I can change my career path, that I can take a risk like this, that I can make an investment that maybe I wouldn't be able to pay off on my own. I have an opportunity that 99% of the world don't have. And so it would be stupid of me and it would be selfish of me not to take advantage of that to the fullest. And then to build something that actually can serve more than just myself or the people around me, but that can actually reach as far as maybe northern Nicaragua one day and like help some people there too. Travel's what gave me that. And not just traveling to like big cities that are, again, the same kind of culturally and economically. I went and I trekked through the Colombian jungle for 4 days, and I saw people who live like indigenous who live in the jungle and like grew up in the jungle. And it was so beautiful. And it just shows you like, wow, you don't need much to be sustained. Like it really is all there. So what are you building for? It makes you ask that question. What are you really building for?
Yeah.
And then of course, like you get to see the world in a whole new way. You get to see really like the beauty of the world. And, you know, that might drive you to want to help sustain that beauty because there's a lot of forces that are tearing that beauty down right now. You know, you just don't know how the travel is going to give you a new purpose, a new reason why, and how it's really going to shape your company as a founder. So I think it's fundamental for entrepreneurs and non-entrepreneurs, really. Like it's fundamental. Get out of your bubble and go see what's really happening. Because if you want to be of service, you got to know the people that you're serving.
I am so happy that you explained that and shared that too, because I think that that's such an important, I mean, I know that that's such an important part of traveling and taking that responsibility, because there's a whole other side of it that can be really damaging of people who especially are from, like you were saying, North America, who are going to these places where um, people have less than them, and it's not beneficial for the people. It's very much, yeah, damaging. And I think that there's a way to do it where if you are going to benefit from those communities, that you're also taking responsibility and giving back. And I agree, it's also, yeah, fundamental for everybody, business owner or not, to go somewhere and see how other people are living, because we do get caught in such a bubble. And then the way you see the world and the way that you live your life and everything is developed from that little tiny bubble, which is just not accurate to what is actually happening in the rest of the world. So yeah, really important. And definitely something that to take from this is if you are living the entrepreneur travel lifestyle, or if you're just traveling in general, that is a responsibility that comes with it, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So what would you say, to kind of wrap this up a little bit, to someone who is maybe a year behind you, trying to build their business, either thinking about traveling or they're traveling and starting a business? What would you say to them to kind of focus on for this next year?
Hmm. Good question. So they're traveling already? Like they're doing the thing?
Yeah, they have that travel bug. They're on their way. They're booking their flights. They
I
just
don't want to beat a dead horse, but like start learning how to manage your money. 100%. That's the most important thing because you will learn how to make money. It's not that hard once you really get the hang of it, but managing it is a whole other beast. And it truly does not matter how much you make if you do not know how to manage it. So that's the first thing I would say. And then the second thing, I feel like there's one more thing I would tell that person. I think I would say like you really have to ask yourself who you're here to serve and what those people need. Getting in touch with your people is like the most important thing you can do in business. One of my biggest breakthroughs, like right before the $30,000 month, actually, I started a free community and I gave away everything I had created at that point. There was like, I don't know, maybe around 9 or 10 little mini courses I'd created. I gave them all away for free in the community. And I started getting on one-on-one calls with people from the community for free. Because I really wanted to know my people, to know what I could do to serve them and to serve them without them ever having to pay me. And it was that really that heart of service, that desire to like deeply connect with people, to hear them, to listen, and then create solutions for them. That's what led to like my business actually becoming more stable and feeling like, okay, I actually have something I can like live off of now. So you have, it's people first always. People have problems. Find out what they are and then create really great solutions for them. That's business in a nutshell.
I love that. What a perfect way to end it.
So
Thank
much
you so much for hopping on. I feel like this was a really important conversation in a lot of ways. You know, travel, like I said, travel and entrepreneurship are a fast track to self-development, and there's a lot of things that come in to that and a lot of lessons that get learned. So I'm excited to have been able to talk about that with you. And I know we went through a lot of that together, which I'm really grateful for. So to be able to look back and be like, wow, yeah, we actually were like, we were doing it. We were doing the things.
Are you still giving online business managing services?
Yeah, I have very limited like spots for very aligned clients because I'm also in much of a transition myself, which is very much in the process of it. So I'm still trying to like figure out where that's going and what is coming from that. But yes, still supporting very aligned exclusive spots.
I love that. Okay, then I have to just hype you up for a second for this thing because Amanda really is the best. Like she truly became, she wasn't just my online business manager. Like I felt like she was my partner in building the business, and she was like the second half of my brain. Like I was really good at, I was a visionary, you know, I always had the idea and the inspiration, and you know, I'm really great at like marketing and sales and showing up and content, but there was so much that I had no idea about when it came to building business, like email automations, even just like managing an email list and like the contacts of that list and onboarding people, offboarding people, like the things that really make a client experience in your world feel more high touch, more luxury. I would have never even known about those. Like, I remember one of the first things you asked me was like, do you have like a welcome sequence, like an email welcome sequence when people join your email list? I was like, what the heck is that? Like, I literally wouldn't have thought of it if it wasn't for Amanda. And she really just came on and like helped me bring all of my wild and crazy ideas to life. And I wouldn't have been able to do what I did in those 3 years without her, like without a doubt. Like there was, and when she came on and she started handling more of those things, I feel like my creativity opened up even more. And there was even more that I was able to dream up and you know, run a community of like 200 people. I couldn't have done that without her, you know? So it's only when you have the support that you're going to start to be able to dream bigger and expand what it is that you're doing right now. So if you're even on the fence about hiring out, like Amanda's the one to do it with. Don't even look anywhere else. Like you found her.
You're so sweet. I love that. And yeah, really grateful for that whole chapter. It's crazy to think of all of the things we did. Is there anything I'm going to be able to, or I'm going to put your contact and all of the things where people can find you in the description. Is there anything coming up that we should look out for where we can follow you and keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I would say go check out the podcast. So our podcast is called Meet Me at the Altar. It is a Christian podcast, but I think we approach Christianity in a really like cool and relatable way. And we talk about things like faith, dating, sexuality, marriage, like a lot to do with relationships. This new season, we're actually about to start filming. There's a lot to do with how to know what's like what feelings to trust, whether your feelings are really like things you should move forward on, or maybe something that you should kind of hold back on. Where is the divine guidance actually leading me right now? We're going to be doing a little bit about dating and like boundaries around dating because me, my sister, my cousin are all in relationships right now. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We talk about building your intimacy with God, which I think, you know, side note, guys, my biggest advice after everything that I've given on this podcast so far is build a relationship with God, because the Bible tells us that he is the one who gives us the ability to create wealth. And with him, we can do it without painful toil. So everything comes from him first. And that relationship has been the most transformational in my entire life. So that's what our podcast really dives into. We're doing an episode on career and purpose and finances as well. So I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my testimony in that sense and how my walk as a Christian has started to transform my ideas about money and purpose, finances, entrepreneurship, all of that. So you'd probably be super interested in that. But yeah, we can link. You'll find if you go to my Instagram page, you'll see the podcast linked. And we already have a first season out. Second season's dropping soon. So check that out. I think you'll really like it.
Yay. Well, thank you so much. And I'll add all of that into the description as well. Thank you for hopping on with me. It's always so much fun to recap everything and get into, you and I feel like have a lot of, we have a lot of experiences, and with that, a lot of thoughts about a lot of things that are happening. So it's always a fun time to get into all of that. So I appreciate you.
Oh, I love you so much.
Thank you so much for being here today. And if you listened all the way through, please let me know. Community is so big for this lifestyle and in this world today and just in general. And I want to hear your stories. If you had thoughts about this episode, let me know. Comment down below, say hi, and I'll see you in the next episode.